Welcome to Valley Newsline. Hello, I'm your host, Ron Whitlock. If you or a member of your family have needed emergency care at a hospital recently in Texas, you probably have had to wait for 6 hours or more to be treated. Emergency rooms all across the Lone Star State have become backed up more and more since Texas Governor Rick Perry and the state Republican leadership and majority changed enrollment procedures for the Children's Health Insurance Program, otherwise known as CHIP. This has resulted now in thousands of Texas children of working poor families in the state of Texas now being taken to emergency rooms rather than to the clinics and doctors' offices which used to care for those children. If you're currently enjoying flood irrigation water from an irrigation district for your citrus grove, your farm, or your nursery operation, you are probably monitoring the Texas legislature. Bills now working their way through the Texas legislature and being considered could result in the case of one bill, one irrigation district being taken over by the city of McAllen. And in the case of a second bill, all 27 other irrigation districts throughout the Rio Grande Valley of South Texas being required to sell or lease their water rights to cities or municipalities as agricultural land is urbanized or subdivided in that region of the state. This is a Valley Newsline update, first of all, on a recent program which featured Texas Senior Senator of Texas, Kay Bailey Hutchison, and her criticism of Governor Perry and other state leaders for not using over $500 million in federal CHIPS money for the Children's Health Insurance Program and for health services in South Texas and across the entire state for children in the state that she says she keeps working to get returned in the state of Texas after it's unused by the Lone Star State. You'll also hear on this program Texas Governor Rick Perry's answer to a South Texas mother whose two children lost their health insurance coverage. But first of all, let's hear the governor's remarks in New Braunfels, where he was honored as Texan of the Year.
It's a great honor for me just to get to serve the 23 million people who call themselves Texans, and frankly, regardless of any recognition that one might bestow upon me. The greatest honor is just to get to be the governor of this wonderful state. But let it be said, I'm very grateful for this honor that you recognized me with for this year. We live in a very interdependent global economy. Those states and nations that recognize economies beyond their borders and welcome free trade are the ones that will grow and prosper. Those that take an isolationist approach will only harm their own people. I don't believe in slapping tariffs on foreign products or shunning foreign investment any more than I do building walls on our foreign border. The key to winning the global competition for jobs and prosperity is education. I proposed expanding financial aid by 60% because I want children of all backgrounds to find their place in this global competition. Education happens to be the great social equalizer. My plan's pretty simple. It makes a college degree more accessible, our institutions more accountable and performance-oriented, and it invests in classroom and research excellence. And it does so with a $1.7 billion infusion of new money for financial aid and stimulating our state institutions to produce those graduates in critical workforce fields faster, better, and with greater skills that they have in the past, that they have had in the past, I might add. Time's running out. There's no use trying to fool ourselves about it. The clock is ticking. If we don't produce qualified workers for the companies and the industries that will dominate the global marketplace in the decades ahead, Texas is going to fall behind. According to a very high-ranking federal official who calls Laredo her home, My higher education incentive is the best reform in all of the 50 states. We need to invest in human infrastructure as much as public infrastructure. Our children happen to be our greatest resource. There is not an oil field in existence that is going to continue pumping oil and gas forever. But human potential will never run dry as long as mankind roams the earth. Education is why I stand before you today, part of the first generation in my family to have the opportunity to go to an institution of higher learning. If the son of tenant farmers can live the greatest dream possible, serving as your governor, then what will millions of young Texans achieve if they get the education that they deserve and that they need? We won't know until we try. And as long as I lead this state, I can promise you one thing: we will not fail from effort. God bless you, and thank you all for this great award today.
Following Governor Perry's speech, here's our question. You'll note that even though the governor was kind enough to help you and I to see his response, the reporter from the Austin American-Statesman newspaper repeatedly and rudely kept moving in front of Valley Newsline's camera. Governor, since thousands of working poor families lost their children's health insurance due to the 6-month enrollment, Edinburgh Children's Hospital and its doctors, State Indigent Care Fund, and companies who employ these parents are paying millions of dollars in emergency room charges where Texas children, U.S. citizens, are now going for their health care after they join the ranks of the uninsured. A Hispanic mother who met with you recently, whose children lost this children's health insurance, has called on you to perform and become a champion to return to the 12-month enrollment in family values and not be remembered as an anti-children governor. That's her comment. Can you give us your response to Rosalie Tristan, whom you met with recently?
I shared with her that I think there is nothing wrong with requiring an individual to show that they are within the laws of the state of Texas. And if you are outside of the requirements that we have in the state as the law, it would be, I think, inappropriate for me to say that that's okay. So I disagree that somehow or another asking people to stay within the requirements of the law. Now, if the law changes, then that's what the legislature's there for. They change laws. But the fact of the matter is, I don't see a problem with asking people to show that they are staying within the requirements and the laws of the state.
The law requires under the SHIP health insurance that they be employed. So these are working people in Texas doing jobs in Texas, paying their taxes out of those salaries.
Just
so these
like
are.
We ask working Texans every day to drive the speed limit, and we have laws in place for law-abiding citizens, and we expect people to stay within the parameters of that. If they find that that is inappropriate, then lobby the legislature and have that changed. But I don't see where that is as big a burden as what some might try to make it big. What I'm upset about is that there was a report in your paper today that is not accurate, in my opinion, that totally and absolutely, and we've asked for a retraction by your paper. I take a bit of hubris with the way that story read today. I don't think it was correct, and I think there is some misstatements of fact, and I'd like to have a retraction.
Texas Governor Rick Perry is asking for a retraction to an Austin American-Statesman story on the Texas Youth Commission controversy. We here at Valley Newsline are hoping for an apology from the Austin American-Statesman reporter who kept moving in and out of the frame, as you saw there at the news conference, so we could not clearly see Texas Governor Perry on several occasions during his response to Rosalie Tristan's question. We talked to McAllen State Representative Veronica Gonzales at her office at the state capitol recently about the wait times at hospital emergency rooms across the state caused by the 200,000 children who have lost their health insurance coverage under the CHIP health insurance program in the state of Texas. It's now requiring them to enroll every 6 months as opposed to a 12-month waiting period. This is now flooding ERs for treatment all across the state of Texas.
we know
What do they average?
about 6 hours now in McAllen, and really throughout the whole Rio Grande Valley. And times, I've read a story where a lady waited overnight with her child and then got sent to another hospital because
of the nursing shortage and the hospital's on diversion.
Well, not just
Probably.
that. Absolutely. I mean, we do have a nursing shortage. We know that. But it's not just that. It's the fact that too many people don't have access to health care. They don't have a primary care doctor. So they use the emergency room as their primary care doctor. If your child has an earache, if your kids wake up in the middle of the night and their tonsils are hurting them and they don't have a primary care doctor, or there's not a clinic that they're a member of, or don't have insurance, they go to the hospital. And that causes a lag at the hospital, a buildup in people that are waiting to see someone. People might think that that's somebody else's problem, but it's all of our problem as a state, because when people don't have access to health care, that means emergency room costs go up. That means they have to spread the cost on to the ultimate user. And so your insurance rates, my insurance rates, everybody's go up. And plus, not only that, but I mean, if you want to look at it in a humanitarian way, we've got a lot of children and adults out there that are sick and are not getting access and not getting care for the things that are hurting them.
And regardless of what your economic status may be in the Rio Grande Valley, you represent one of many going to the emergency room at whatever hospital that you choose.
Sure, and I represent.
You're going to have to wait just as long as everybody else.
Absolutely, absolutely. I represent people that have the luxury of having good primary care and insurance, and I represent those that don't. But whether you have it or you don't, if you're an employer and you have people that don't have insurance and their children get sick or they get sick, they're going to miss time from work. They're going to lose productivity as employers, and the employer is going to lose out, and then the cost of the product or the service that the employer provides is going to go up. So the end user, which is you and me, whether we're insured or not, we will feel it when people do not have access to health care. And in our state, Ron, we are one of the worst states when it comes to access to health care. I think a statistic that sticks out in people's minds, stuck it in my mind, was that if you took all the uninsured people in the state of Texas, you could fill the UT football stadium 70 times, okay? About a quarter of our kids, 1/4 of all of the kids in Texas are uninsured. First and foremost, what I think we can do and what I think we will be doing soon is that we're going to have some legislation on the floor that's going to restore some of the benefits in the Children's Health Insurance Program.
Which could be up to $300 million plus estimated in the Rio Grande Valley and along the border region.
Well, it could be. We're not putting, it's not a perfect bill, Ron, by any means. I mean, we're not putting into CHIP everything we should be. But we are, some of the stringent requirements that happened with House Bill 2292, which everybody talks about now, which was back in 2003. At that time, we put some requirements on CHIP enrollees, applicants, that have become very unreasonable. Not only that, but we privatized it. Things have changed. This bill will get rid of the 90-day waiting period that's currently in CHIP. It will increase the asset test. Only 2 states in the entire nation have an asset test, and Texas is one of those 2, and it's the lowest asset test. If you and I had $5,000 in the bank, $5,000 that we might be saving for our kids' college or for an emergency or something that happens, we would not qualify for CHIP, because you can't have $5,000 in liquid assets.
And CHIP children are the children of working poor. They're employed parents.
Yeah, and it's not even, a lot of them you wouldn't even consider poor, okay? Because these are people that could be making $30,000 a year. They're not necessarily poor people. They're working people that cannot afford private insurance, which so many can't, but they're not poor enough to be Medicaid. So they're in the middle, and they want to be sure that their kids have insurance, and they're paying for it. They would pay a premium, although it's lower than a private insurance. But the 90-day waiting period, the re-enrollment every 6 months as opposed to a year, and the asset test being so low knocked a lot of kids off of the CHIP rolls.
175,000 to 200,000.
200,000 kids off of the rolls of CHIP.
If you missed our first segment, you saw Texas Governor Rick Perry tell us that he continues to support the current CHIP enrollment process because of legalities causing the 200,000 children across the state to lose their Texas health insurance program from CHIP. now causing them to flood hospital emergency rooms throughout the state of Texas. State Representative Veronica Gonzales tells us that even though State Representative Keno Flores has a bill that has the city of McAllen taking over the Hidalgo County Water Control and Improvement District number 3, her bill does not place other valley water districts in a similar position.
My bill was a bill dealing with the conversion of water rights from being agricultural to being municipal for the municipalities. What it would do, it provided a uniform system by which municipalities could buy water rights from the irrigation districts. And that's all it does. It provides a mechanism by where once land is subdivided and platted, that the municipalities can come and purchase water rights. They can either purchase them outright or they can lease them under long-term leases for 40 years or longer. And it provides how you do it, when you must petition. If you want to do it, it's optional. You may petition, you may not, but then it allows you to feel secure as a municipality that you're going to have that water available to your citizens. So it allows you to do it. It tells you that you've got the time limit to do it, and you've got to do it within 2 years after you've got the land subdivided and it's platted. And then it tells you what you'll pay for it. It talks about the terms of a long-term lease. And it basically was a compromise bill that was reached between irrigators and municipalities over 18 months to come up with something that both sides could live with.
It is not, in effect, predestined that all irrigation districts will ultimately be taken over by municipalities in the valley, and the water districts and irrigation districts will become municipal pumping districts, as Jim Darling has explained to this audience in the past.
No, and like I said, there's two different bills, okay? There's a bill that dissolved irrigation district number 3. That's a separate bill. That's the bill that Representative Flores was carrying. My bill was the one that just converted the water, allowing you to make sure that you, as a municipality, that you're going to have water available. And actually, it's a win-win for both sides. It can make money for the irrigators, for the irrigation districts, because some of them are giving their water away right now. And so this will let them charge 68% of market value. And it's a win for the municipalities, because they can be assured that as we continue to urbanize, that water is available for their urban areas.
Does it not mandate, therefore, by legislature and by law, if passed and signed by the governor, that only the municipalities can buy these rights?
Well, no, not just municipalities can buy the rights. I mean, right now,
But it sets the rate, it sets the price that municipalities would pay.
It sets the rate and price that the municipalities would pay.
Wouldn't that be like a right of first refusal against any other potential buyer of those rights from these water districts?
Yes, well, what we don't want is for a municipality to be in a position where, for instance, they are looking for water rights for their area and they can't get them from an irrigation district, and they have to go outside and buy it somewhere else, and they're paying a super high price to do it when the water is available there. And water is very cheap, actually, in the Rio Grande Valley. And then we don't want irrigators to be left with all this water that they then can't provide for their irrigation district in terms of money, because they're not selling it. They're only selling it to a handful of farmers, and they're not selling it to these municipalities. So this allows you, it doesn't force you, but it allows you as a municipality to then petition for these rights, to petition after your land is subdivided. And so again, it's permissive in that respect. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to. If you want to do it in the terms of a long-term lease, you can do that as well and set a lot of your own terms. The price might end up being a little bit higher because you're not actually agreeing to buy it outright, forever. You're leasing it, but it's not forcing you to do anything. And that's what I think made it a compromise bill and made it one that both the irrigators and the municipalities felt that they could live with. And we had a committee hearing on it last night. It was unopposed. We've had a lot of people come from the Rio Grande Valley, both irrigators and municipal representatives that were there to testify or register in favor of the bill, and the hearing went very smoothly.
So, to wrap a bow around the whole issue and the entire legislative package, it is not to affect takeovers per se of irrigation water districts in the valley. 28 would serve mainly at this particular point in time and focus on the needs of agriculture, farming, and so forth, to be ultimately taken over and become municipal pumping districts for cities in the valley.
No, this bill is simply a way to assure that irrigators are paid a good price for their water, and the municipalities have water available to them. That's all the bill does.
Are you concerned about this bill as it works its way through the House and then on to the Senate?
Ron, I'm very concerned that we maintain a balance so that agricultural producers have the resources that they need to continue to produce quality fruits and vegetables like this grapefruit here today from the Rio Grande Valley. And it's so important as any legislation moves forward that the irrigators, the producers, and the municipalities who are experiencing real growing pains continue to stay at the table, to analyze its impact, and to address all possible concerns so that we can continue to have such a prominent role and to continue our core economic base, which is really our agricultural production.
Have you evaluated this bill and determined yet whether you're going to be in support of or in opposition to this bill?
Well, the bill was heard yesterday, and there was no opposition from local producers or irrigation districts. And so I'm looking to the local irrigation districts and the local producers to share their concerns with me. None were registered yesterday when the bill was laid out.
So if they do have opposition, you would like them to contact you to engage you in this legislative process?
We need to make certain that they bring their specific issues forward to work with the local irrigation districts as they negotiate with the municipalities to ensure that their views are represented, and we'll give them all the support that the Department of Agriculture possibly can.
Otho Lee Brand Jr. tells Valley Newsline from Austin, where he's working in opposition to both the Gonzales bill and the Flores bill, taking over his irrigation district, the one that he chairs, that both bills are bad for the future of agriculture in the Valley in South Texas. Brand claims that the opinion of Valley farmers and ranchers has not been solicited and not been heard from by the water districts or the municipalities who support either of these bills. The health care of 200,000 Texas children who have lost their health insurance due to the actions taken by the Texas legislature, including the state's governor, lieutenant governor, and speaker of the House, are but one issue being contemplated by this program. And the second is how everyone's access to health care across the state of Texas is being impacted on in our emergency rooms. These are now being hurt because working poor parents across the state of Texas are now taking their children to emergency rooms for care. Other unintended circumstances include the resulting impact on the indigent care funds of counties, which are funded by the state of Texas, by the way, hospitals and doctors who often don't get paid for the ER visits, which federal law require care that they provide to these children, and to the small businesses who often pay the emergency room bills because their employees cannot afford to pay them. The Valley's last cut and sew manufacturing plant, Vanity Fair in Mission, may have to close and take hundreds of jobs offshore, where other jobs have gone earlier. This is because Texas chip cutbacks has resulted in extraordinary increases in visits to ERs by children of its workers, charges that are now being paid by Vanity Fair, making their Texas operation unprofitable. To monitor bills covered on this edition of Valley Newsline, go to valleynewsline.tv 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, as well as to see other webcasts of this program and others dealing with the issues covered by our program today. These programs often viewed by staffs and others in Washington, D.C. and Austin, Texas. Thank you for joining us here on Valley Newsline today. Till next time, adios.